Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the TCEC season 24 Superfinal between the two top engines Stockfish 15 and the LC0. So the last time when I recorded the video about this competition, LC0 was in the lead. Lila had a whole point more than Stockfish 15, but now things have dramatically changed in this event. Stockfish eventually took the lead. Stockfish won now 3 games, 3 consecutive decisive games, and is now in the lead, has now 2 points more than LC0. I think we could have expected this outcome, and of course probably Stockfish will win eventually a new TCEC season, but still I think it's an interesting fact that Stockfish is not winning every pairing. What I mean about this, even if you have followed of course the TCEC competition, then you know that basically these two top engines have to play once with the white pieces and then the same opening with the black pieces. So Stockfish didn't win every direct duel against LC0. In some of this opening, Stockfish played a draw with the white pieces when Stockfish had an advantage, but eventually lost the reverse game with the black pieces against LC0. So in some of these lines, in some of this opening, still LC0 seems to be maybe even slightly better, but still of course I would dare to say that still Stockfish is of course the best engine in the board, and in my opinion it's still the best engine when it comes to tactical calculations, when it comes to really deep understanding of some wild lines. So in my opinion of course is still the favorite to win the TCEC season 24. So let's see now one epic game from this event. Be prepared, put your seatbelts on. In my opinion, this was simply the best game so far from the TCEC season 24 Superfinal. Really brutal attack. Here Stockfish with the white pieces against LC0 with the black pieces in the Pirc defense in the so-called Austrian attack. So Stockfish with the white pieces opened with the move e4. Lila's response was d6. I have to adjust just some settings here about the sound. Sorry. Okay. After move d6, so we have now the Pirc defense. We have now the move d4, knight to f6, knight to c3, and after move g6 now comes the Austrian attack move, which is now this aggressive method with this move f4. So we are having now these 3 connected pawns in the center of the board, and the main strategic goal is to break and enter with the pawn move e5. So in the game, bishop to g7, knight to f3, we have kingside castling, and now bishop to d2 was still the prearranged line by the organizer, so Stockfish had to play now this line, and the last prearranged move by the organizer was now this double fianchetto idea by LC0 here, the move b6. From this point on, the engines are calculating this position for themselves. So in the game, Stockfish continued with the move bishop to d3, because obviously bishop to b7 would be black's continuation, hitting the pawn on e4. In the game, bishop to b7, we have now queen to e2, connecting still all of these pieces to the square e4. In the game, c5 by LC0, Lila is trying to break somehow the position in the center of the board, because that's of course the huge advantage that white has now in the continuation of the game. Now Stockfish goes with d5. We have a6 preparing b5. That's why a4 by Stockfish, preventing this aggressive method here on the queen side, and now a rook to e8, which of course makes perfect sense. The king is still in the center of the board. If the center clears, then of course the king could be in danger. So far also a good defensive move here by LC0. But now put your seatbelts on. Look how Stockfish is now attacking this position. Many of us would of course castle, maybe play slow, build up h3, g4, maybe I don't know, maybe queen to f2, reroute the knight. So many opportunities, but Stockfish goes all in already in move 11. Stockfish goes aggressive with this move, knight to g5. And in the beginning, I asked myself, why would anyone play the move knight to g5? Because this knight can be probably kicked away with h6. Then you have to maybe retreat. Okay, you have provoked some weaknesses. Okay, at least you did something. But in my opinion, it seemed to me that it's a little bit too rushed to play with your knight here immediately without support, without maybe improvement of other minor pieces. But Stockfish plays like Stockfish plays chess. It's simply a different story. After move knight to g5, here Lila went with h6, and now comes the immediate stunner here by Stockfish, e5. And the problem is now that you cannot do so many things. For instance, knight to d5 seems tempting. here also by black, but actually this is not working because of this beautiful tactical shot. Knight to f7, king to f7. Now the queen is coming into the game, and for instance, if you step back here with your king, then we have this one, queen to e6, king to h8, and now we can even play something like queen to g6, and the game should be over. For instance, you play king to g8, now even f5, maybe knight to c3, look at this, bishop to h6. So I don't really want to show you every possible line, but obviously black is getting destroyed here for sure. So after move e5, Lila-C0 took simply the knight here on g5, but the problem here for white is, and that was actually Stockfish preparation, is that you cannot take out the knight on f6. Many of us would play the game like this, but look at this. After e takes f6, we have here e takes f6, the e file gets opened, and suddenly again the game is over. The queen is endangered. You cannot cover yourself. Even if you play bishop to e3, then something like g takes f4 happens. If you play knight to e4, bishop to e4, then f5 is going to happen. So you cannot even put some pieces in front of the queen or in front of the king, so you're getting tactically destroyed already. But that was not Stockfish preparation. After move h takes g5, Stockfish plays the brutal e6. This is now the good stuff. Look at this. This move is simply destroying the whole king side. Now e6 is simply deflecting this pawn from the square g6, and now bishop to g6, for instance, queen to h5 is going to happen. So from this point on, the game is simply becoming a one-way ticket. Incredible stuff that Stockfish basically destroys here with Lila-C0 already in 30 moves. Of course, they have to play bad pre-arranged lines. Of course, they have to play bad pre-arranged openings, but this is really brutal what Stockfish is doing. After move 13, I really cannot see any good move anymore here for black. So as I said, it's simply not a good game anymore for Lila-C0. So in the game, Lila tried bishop to c8. Stockfish plays now f takes g5, simply kicks away the knight. And the problem is now, again, some ideas of maybe knight to d5 or something to get the piece back are not working, because you get simply this one. E takes f7, king to f7, now knight to d5, kingside castling, bishop to g6 is going to happen. So you're getting, again, tactically destroyed on a light square. So instead of this move knight to d5, you can play maybe knight to h7. Many of us would try to play the game like this, but again, this move is brutalizing here. Black e takes f7, you have to accept the challenge here. King to f7, now kingside castling, and now even if you put some pieces in front of the king, for instance, you try bishop to f5, look at this stunner. Queen to e6 would be the beautiful choice. King to f8, of course, with pickups here, simply the piece after g takes f5, rook to f5, you bring maybe new pieces in between, but now we can even play g6. Look at this, maybe even with the threat to deliver checkmate here on f7. So you see, after move f takes g5, you cannot really get your knight on a good square. That's now the downside, and that was the beauty about this game. Stockfish recognized this pattern here in the game. Lila-C0 tried to give some material back, but include also a new defender into the game, which in some occasions, of course, makes pretty perfect sense. You have to play sometimes moves that give back material to your opponent just in order to regroup, just in order to get some kind of defense. In the game, g takes f6, e takes f6, and now again a brilliant move here by Stockfish 15, h4. Many of us would say, okay, I created something, I created some mess, let's get out of this mess, let's castle finally. But Stockfish plays now the move h4, and this is really again brutal, because if you try something like f takes e6, many of us, I think from black's perspective, would try this idea, maybe try to open the e file, but look what happens. Bishop to g6 hitting the rook, you have to step back. Now even queenside castling would be a possibility, and after something like e takes d5, queen to h5, and in my opinion, there's again not a good defense anymore. Knight to d5 is going to happen, queen to h7, rook to f1, rook to e1, bishop to h6. So look at this. All of these pieces of white would simply produce here monstrous attack, would simply be included into the attack. Every move would participate in the attack. That's the beauty about this Stockfish formation here. So after move queen to h5, I think you can resign the game. So look at this. So after move h4, you don't have time. That's the issue here. You don't have time to play f takes e6. So in the game, knight to e5 was played by Lila-C0, trying to get a new defender to the game, which again really makes sense. But now Stockfish continues with the pressure h5. We have now f takes e6. Now maybe there are some threats on the e file, but now finally queenside castling here by Stockfish 15. Really a stunning move. Now Stockfish castled out of the attack castle on the opposite side and still has this beautiful progress here around the square g6. So in the game, e takes d5, opening up the e file. The queen is now a little bit endangered, but here we have h takes g6. You don't have such a good discovery. Even if you try something like knight to d3, then queen to d3, queen to h, maybe queen to h3. Of course, it's not possible, but somehow, I don't know, maybe to include the queen on the on the h file, maybe knight to d5 afterwards. Bishop to h6 is also tempting. So you see, we have already enough, I think, weakened the structure in front of the king. Now the bishop is only a defender in front of the king. This rook is not participating. This rook can be always included into the attack. So again, a messed up game, I think, here for black. So after move h takes g6, here we have bishop to g4 by Lc0. Lila goes for the rook, but actually it doesn't matter. This is not a game about material anymore. This was always a game, I think, about this endangered king on g8. In the game, queen to f1. Played by Stockfish, bishop to d1, king to d1. We have knight to d3, queen to d3. So Lila played, I think, so far a good defense, but look at this. Still, you don't have defensive resources. This bishop is blocked out. You have to include the queen somehow into the defense. So again, not a good game here for black. So in the game, queen to d7, obvious move, of course, trying to get new defender into the game, especially on the 7th rank. This could be very dangerous around the square h7. This is the clear target. In the game, queen to d3 with the preparation to play queen to h5. Again, Stockfish is trying to get the rook and the queen battery on the h file. This is, of course, the main tactical goal. In the game, rook to a7, knight to d5, and look at this. All of white's pieces are again on the most active square. Knight very nice, queen will get into the game, rook very active, bishop targeting the weak square in h6. So again, Stockfish builds a beautiful attacking formation. So in the game, queen to e6, rook to e1, hitting the queen. The queen has to step back. Rook to f1, attacking now also the pawn on f6. In the game, queen to a4, attacking now also the back rank. Here there are maybe some threats with the queen to a1, but Stockfish continues with the plan. Queen to h5. And notice in this scenario that actually the queen is indirectly hitting the rook on e8. Of course, not immediately, but some issues are something like knight to f6, then bishop to g7, and then bishop to f6, and then g7, liberating this long diagonal and hitting the rook on e8. So in the game, rook to e6 was played by Lc0, getting out of this attack by the queen, because if you play something like queen to a1, many of us, I think, would be also tempted with this move, but we simply hide, we simply cover ourselves with the move bishop to c1. Now you can maybe get the bishop out and you protect maybe your 7th rank, because there are also some checkmate threats around the square h7. Look at this. This is the way to go. g7, as I said, the rook is endangered, that the game is basically over. You can try maybe something like rook to g7, then we pick up here this one, and again, it's simply game over. King to h7, and then knight to f6 is even here a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. So very, very wild stuff. So this is not working, so you don't have time to play this move queen to a1. So that's why in the game, rook to e6, played by Lc0, getting out of this potential attack by the queen on the light square. So in the game, queen to h7, king to f8, bishop to h6. Of course, you cannot take bishop to h6, then queen to h8 leads immediately into a checkmate. The pawn is very active here, controls the escape route for the king on light squares. In the game, after bishop to h6, even if you try again this idea, queen to a1, the problem is now we can play king to d2. If you play something like queen to f1, then again with queen to h8, the same checkmate patterns applies here. This is not working. So you can maybe try here maybe bishop to h6, but as I said, this was not working. So whatever you do, this is a messed up game here for black. So after move bishop to h6 that Stockfish played, Lila played queen to d4, which really makes sense. So we're hitting the knight, and here if you take out the knight immediately, then of course again queen to h8, you have to step back here, then queen to g7 will simply pick up this piece, and we have the passer. We have now also the support of the bishop, the support of the rook. So temporarily, of course black took some pieces, but this is not working. This is game over again here for black. So in the game, as we said, after move king to c1, here we have bishop to h6, queen to h6, we have king to g8, rook to h1, threatening again the checkmate on h8. You have to play now f5, controlling the h8 square, and now comes the most beautiful move, I think, of the whole game. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the winning move. And actually, there is only one winning move. Every other move is, I think, bad for for white, pardon me. So pause the video and try to see now here the beautiful, stunning tactic that Stockfish saw. So in my opinion, this is also a beautiful game because Lila actually defended this position in a good way. Lila played the only solutions here, but now after this move, basically the game is over. Stockfish will prove us why it's over. It's not so easy to see the move immediately, but it's a brilliant, stunning move here by Stockfish. So as I said, pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. Okay, here the cool idea is the beautiful g4 move, and this is really brutal because if you play something like queen to d5, then of course queen to h8 is again a beautiful checkmate. If you try queen to g7, that's the problem here, then actually white can go into a favorable endgame after queen to g7, king to g7. Okay, you have defended this position for a little bit, but now after g takes f5, the rook has to step back. Look at this, and if the rook steps back, of course, somewhere, then we have rook to h7, and we'll pick up now this rook on the 7th rank. You can maybe sacrifice some material, or maybe you can play, I don't know, rook to g6, f take g6, king to g6. Okay, it prolongs the game a little bit. Maybe you can survive this, but in top engine level, of course, this pawn will be taken. Then, of course, this one is weak. The king will be cut off by the rook's activity. Will simply include the king into the game. So, still, in my opinion, this is completely winning game here for white. So, this is the way to go. This is now the most brilliant move, I think, from this game. g4 after f takes g4. You see, you have to accept the challenge. Now comes a beautiful move, queen to g5. If you play, of course, something like rook to e5, then queen to d8 is winning the game. Look at this. You don't have time to play these dubious moves like this. So after move queen to g5, in order to stay in the game, you have to play a rook to d7, controlling now the d8 square. Now queen to f5. Look at this. What happens? For instance, you play rook to e5, attacking now the queen. This is also the stunner. Rook to h8, king to h8, and then queen to f8 is again a beautiful checkmate. So this pawn here on g6 is so brilliant. It controls really this most important light squares for black. So this is really enormous pressure. Basically, this is undefendable anymore. So after move queen to f5, that Stockfish played queen to e5 was played by Lc0, and again now comes this beautiful idea, a rook to h8. Again, of course, if you pick up the rook with the king, then of course queen to f8 is a beautiful checkmate. So you have to now accept the challenge with a different move. You have to play queen to h8, but now we pick up this one, and look at this rook is hanging. Now we have even some worries with the move knight to f6. So this is really a sick, brutal tactical sequence here by Stockfish 15. So let's see now the continuation. It's not over until it's over, because still I think many of us would mess this up, but not of course Stockfish. After king to f8, that Stockfish had to play here. First, pardon me, that Lila had to play. We have queen to f5, attacking the king. After king to g8, now comes knight to f6, the fork. But after king to g7, we don't want to pick up here the rook immediately. If you play, of course, something like, I don't know, knight to d7 immediately, then of course queen to h1 is dangerous, and I think maybe there are some perpetuals. Actually, the engine gives here even equal chances, so probably this game leads into a perpetual draw. It means, of course, not a good continuation here for white. So that's why after move king to g7, Stockfish plays first knight to h5, the check, cuts off now the activity of the queen on the h file, so no checks are possible here on h1. So that's why after king to h6, now queen to d7, because if you play now king to h5, then you get this one, queen to h7. You have to trade off the queens, and now after g takes h7, you cannot catch anymore this pawn, so this pawn will be promoted. So again, it's game over here for black. So this was the stunning tactic, queen to d7. You cannot pick up the knight. in the game king to g6 was played, but now first again this beautiful check. If you pick up here the knight again, then you get this one, queen to a2. You get the queen here on the h file. The king has to step back from the h file. So again, it's game over. So after move queen to d6, you see there was simply no time for LcZero to pick up the knight on h5. In the game king to h7, queen to f4. We have king to g6 now, picking up simply another pawn here. In the game king to h6, knight to f4. We have queen to e8, queen to e6, forcing the trades of queens. In the game king to g5 was played, of course. Obviously queen to e6 was much better, but this engines, of course, in the end game, when they're realizing that they're losing the game, then they're playing simply another continuations. It doesn't matter what the current evaluation is, they're simply seeing, of course, that this game should be over. So of course it's probably better to trade off queens, but still with this extra knight we'll pick up many of these pawns, and of course it's a completely winning end game here for white. So after move queen to d6, as we said, here that was the continuation. So after queen to e6, LcZero went with the king on g5. Stockfish played another check. We have king to h4, queen to e8. Now after a couple more checks by the queen and the knight, after a couple more moves, this was a beautiful checkmate after move knight to g3. So this was epic. This was really immortal how Stockfish played the game. So many cool tactical shots. First, let's go back to the critical moments of the game. So first of all, this idea e6, that was really brutal. Simply sacrificing the piece but opening up the position. Then I liked this choice h4. Simply continue with the pressure, although there was the threat of maybe opening the e-file, but Stockfish calculated this position in a beautiful way. And then also this stunning move g4, that was the winning move. Many of us would not see, I think, this move. This was epic, simply threatening to connect both of the pawns. When the position got open after g4, then the queen came into the game, and now after queen to f5, this was the checkmate threat, rook to h8, and then followed with queen to f8. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Austrian attack of the Pirc defense. Really brutal and epic game here by Stockfish. So as I said, Stockfish is now in the lead, has now 2 points more than LcZero. So okay, if you want to see more brutal and epic games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, AlphaZero, LcZero, Dragon Engine, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.